Let me just say this. We are some pretty good detectives. Didn't we all say that Francis was the one who swam back to the shore, the one who carried on the bloodline and became the ancestor of future generations, leading all the way back to Ruth? Honestly, I'm not surprised. Ruth was actually my second suspect on the list, but I'm a little bit disappointed because Ruth is my favorite character now, okay? She is the friend in my head, and I can't believe that Tom has to kill her. Let's go back to the beginning. We see Francis and the other children leaving the island on the boat. Almost immediately, the children begin suffering side effects from leaving Widow's Bay. One of them says they can't see, which immediately remind me of Lauren, Tom's wife. When Lauren was on the ferry heading to the mainland, she also complained that she couldn't see. Then the camera focused directly on Francis' brooch, which leads into the painting we've already seen in the present timeline, the same painting Tom was desperately trying to remove from the wall. I thought that scene was so hilarious because Tom was more worried about protecting the island's reputation than sounding the sirens. But there's another clue that caught my attention. The older man standing outside Tom's door tells him to read the accounts of the storm of 1783. He described it beginning with a large, ugly storm clouds just like the ones approaching the island now. He says the storm brought water spouts and tornadoes, men were ripped into the black sky, babies were torn from their mother's arms. A lot of major historic events occur in 1783. There was the Great Hurricane of 1783, which devastated much of the American East Coast with massive flooding and destruction. Europe experienced extreme weather after the eruption of Laki volcano in Iceland, bringing several thunderstorms, strange atmospheric conditions, and widespread damage. The winter of 1783 through 1784 became one of the harshest winters ever recorded. The Treaty of Paris was also signed in 1783, officially ending the American Revolution and reorganizing the United States as an independent nation. And then there was the Great Meteor of 1783, a massive fireball witnessed across Great Britain and Europe as it struck across the sky before breaking apart. A lot happened during that year, which makes me think the writers chose 1783 for a reason. Back in the present day, Tom accidentally drops the painting on himself and ends up lying on the floor in pain. The painting is of Francis Fisher, also known as Francis Warren. But what's interesting is another portrait hanging nearby, that of Patrick Tracy. The portrait of Patrick Tracy was painted by John Greenwood between 1749 and 1752. At first glance, it may seem like a random historical painting, but the show keeps placing these historical figures in the background, like I said, for a reason. Then Patricia reveals something huge. Richard Warren wasn't actually the last descendant capable of breaking the island's curse. Francis Warren was. Here is another detail I found interesting. The actress Frances Fisher in Titanic, her character name was Ruth DeWitt. Now, maybe that's just a coincidence, but after everything this show has done with names, bloodlines, and historical reference, I'm not so sure. Patricia tells Tom they need to sound the sirens and get everyone to safety. As residents begin gathering inside the town hall storm shelter, another historical picture appears in the background once again, this time of William Sidney Mount. Mount was a famous 19th century American painter who known for documenting everyday life. What caught my attention wasn't necessarily him, it was his family. One of his close relatives was named Ruth Mount Seabury, and suddenly the name Ruth appears again. At this point, it feels like every historical breadcrumb somehow circles back to Ruth. Remember when I talked about the Salem witch trials in episode 6? Some of the names connected to the accusations, including Patricia and Ruth. If the writers intentionally layer those clues throughout the season, that is damn clever, okay? Meanwhile, the situation on the island keeps getting worse. The generator starts failing and the emergency lights only have enough battery power. And remember back in episode 1 when Tom told Wick that the island's power grid and infrastructure was outdated? Yeah, that warning suddenly feels a lot more important now. What makes even crazier is that Tom keeps barely missing everyone he needs to talk to. When he goes looking for Garrett, Garrett has already gone to the town hall. By the time Tom gets there, Garrett getting ready to leave again. I actually found that pretty funny, okay? Garrett is very slow when it comes to doing things. Every time Tom asks for something, and him and that damn bike he carries with, he's just so slow just getting to his next destination. When Tom returns to the town hall, he found Shaman outside asking for help. Then disaster strikes. The tornado picks Shaman up and throws him into the air, and immediately I thought back to what the old man said earlier in the episode. The storm brought water spouts and tornadoes. Men were ripped into the black sky. The storm isn't just repeating history, it's fulfilling it. And also what I thought was a little bit funny is Shaman kept calling Tom Wick, saying, Wick, please help me with my stuff. And I'm like, Shaman, that's Tom. What was kind of crazy is that he was wearing a pair of socks that was on the ground. He could have left everything that was on the ground and went inside the town hall meeting. At the same time, Sheriff Bashir is desperately trying to get his pregnant wife off the island. He understands that if their child is born in Widow's Bay, the cycle may continue, trapping another generation within the curse. Then we get one of my favorite scenes in the episode. Rosemary begins tracing Richard Warren's family tree. She used her skills as a genealogy. Honestly, I feel like I was sitting right there in the meeting with Tom, Wick, and Patricia, discovering the truth alongside them. My favorite line comes when Rosemary says, picture this, you're a little girl and your finger gets broken off by a wagon wheel. Next thing you know, your dad is dead, your stepmom is taking you on an adventure, destination hell. I bust out laughing. The way she delivers that line is so perfect, and not to mention when Rosemary kept saying lesbian and Patricia said, please stop using that. Rosemary was like, I can't use lesbian anymore. And the next thing she said was retards. I said, oh my God, Rosemary. But beyond the humor, Rosemary provides a ton of information about the Warren descendants that could become important later. I may make a separate video just to break down the entire timeline and all the historical characters. Eventually, Tom, Wick, and Patricia are faced with the impossible decision. If Ruth is truly the last descendant of Richard Warren, should they sacrifice her in order to break the curse? Wick is ready to do it. Patricia is completely against it. Tom, as usual, is stuck in the middle. I want to hear what you guys think. If you were sitting in the room with Tom, Wick, and Patricia, whose side would you take? Personally, I understand both arguments. Part of me agrees with Wick. If Ruth is truly the source of the bloodline, then it might end the curse. But I also understand Patricia's compassion. And honestly, I don't think it's going to be that simple. What if Ruth already knows she's the descendant? What if that's the reason she never had children? Maybe she intentionally ended the bloodline herself. Or maybe she has a secret child nobody knows about. There's also another possibility. What if Patricia is a descendant too? She was born on the island. We've learned almost nothing about her family history. When Tom asks who the descendant is, Patricia immediately shuts the conversation down and says, don't answer that. It doesn't matter who it is. Maybe she's trying to protect Ruth, or maybe she's afraid the answer could lead back to her. Either way, I think there's a lot more to Patricia's story than we've been told. Let me know your theories in the comments below. I can't believe we only have one episode left, but honestly, I have a feeling not all of our questions will be answered in the finale, which means season 2 may already be on the horizon. And I really hope so. I am keeping my fingers crossed. Like I said before, please comment down below your theories. I enjoyed reading all your theories. All of you guys are very good with your detective work. And like I said, you guys are my second pair of eyes, okay? Because once again, I rewatched this episode twice and I'm quite sure I probably missed something. I'll see you in the next one.